My name is Claire Sterling. I'm standing in the executive break room at Sterling Innovations at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and my husband's mistress just slapped a pregnancy test on the marble counter between us while 17 people pretend not to watch through the glass walls. Preston needs to know the truth, Chloe Thorne said, her hand protective over her still flat stomach. I'm 8 weeks along. We're going to tell the board this afternoon. I looked at the test. 2 pink lines. My throat went dry. Preston is my husband. She laughed. Actually laughed. Your husband? Honey, you're the admin who sorts his mail. Preston and I have been together for 2 years. He's told me everything about you. How you throw yourself at him. How you make up stories. She leaned closer. Her perfume was expensive. The same brand I'd bought for our anniversary last month. He feels sorry for you. That's why he hasn't fired you yet. My hands were shaking. I set down the coffee mug I'd been holding. Preston's coffee mug. The one I'd brought from home this morning because he'd texted me at 6:14 a.m. saying he forgot his travel thermos. I need you to leave, I said quietly. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Chloe crossed her arms. This is my company too now. Preston's been teaching me everything. By next quarter, I'll be on the executive board. Where will you be, Claire? Still filing expense reports? The 17 people beyond the glass weren't even pretending anymore. I could see phones coming out. This would be all over the company's Slack by 9:50. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I walked out of that break room with my face burning so hot I could feel my pulse in my teeth. I made it to the women's bathroom on the 3rd floor before my hands stopped shaking enough to text Preston. He didn't respond for 43 minutes. When he finally called, I was sitting in a stall with my feet pulled up so no one would see me. Claire, Chloe told me what happened. His voice was tired. Not angry, not defensive, just tired. We need to talk about boundaries. She said she's pregnant. I know. It's complicated. Those 3 words. It's complicated. I'd heard them before. When I'd asked why he needed Chloe to travel with him to the Series E funding meetings in Singapore. When I'd questioned why her name was on the corporate card receipts for a weekend in Napa I hadn't been invited to. When I'd found the jewelry box in his briefcase with an engagement ring that wasn't meant for me. It was the design I'd sketched for our 3rd anniversary, the one I'd shown him with shaking hands, asking if we could finally tell people we were married. Where are you? I asked. In the car. Look, I'll be back around 3. We can talk then, just please don't make a scene. This company is worth $9.8 billion and we're closing the funding round in 6 weeks. I need everyone focused. He hung up before I could respond. Let me take you back 3 years and 2 months, to the night my father died. I was 26. Dad had called me to his home office at 11 p.m., which wasn't unusual. Richard Sterling didn't sleep much. He'd built Sterling Innovations from a garage startup to a tech conglomerate, and even at 73 with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, he worked 18-hour days. Claire Bear, he said, using the nickname he'd had for me since I was 5. Sit down. We need to talk about what happens after. The office smelled like leather and the peppermint tea he'd switched to when coffee started making him sick. His desk was mahogany, imported from somewhere I couldn't pronounce. There was a photograph of my mother on the corner. She'd died when I was 12, and next to it, a photo of me at my MIT graduation. Dad, don't. I'm not being morbid. I'm being practical. He slid a folder across the desk. You're the majority shareholder, 51%. It's been in trust since you were born, but it transfers to you completely when I die. Nobody knows except my attorney and me. I opened the folder. The trust documents were dense, full of legal language I'd have to read 3 times to understand. But the number was clear, 51%. Preston doesn't know, he said. It wasn't a question. No. Preston Vance and I had been dating for 4 months. He was brilliant. Harvard MBA, 3 successful exits before 35. Dad had hired him as COO 6 months earlier. I wanted to be sure he Loved you for you, not for this. Dad tapped the folder. Smart girl. Keep it that way for now. Watch him. See who he is when he thinks there's nothing to gain. You don't trust him. I don't trust anyone with my company except you, but I'm old-fashioned. I want you to be sure. He pulled out another envelope, this one sealed with red wax. If something feels wrong, if he shows you he's not the man you think he is, open this. Not before, only when you're certain you need it. 3 weeks later, Dad was gone. The funeral was on a Friday. Preston proposed on Sunday, in the garden of the Atherton estate Dad had left me. We married at City Hall the following Tuesday with 2 witnesses we pulled from the courthouse hallway. Preston said it was romantic, eloping like that, private, just ours. I believed him. I kept the majority shareholder information secret, like Dad had asked. I took a job at Sterling Innovations as an administrative assistant in the legal department. Preston thought it was sweet, me wanting to understand the company from the ground up. He thought I was learning. I was, just not what he expected. The red wax envelope stayed in my safety deposit box, unopened. For 3 years, I watched. I sorted mail and filed expense reports and sat in on meetings taking notes nobody read. I watched Preston charm the board, restructure departments, negotiate deals. I watched him hire Chloe Thorne as his executive secretary 8 months ago. I watched her move into the office next to his. I watched late-night emails become late-night dinners, become overnight trips to investor meetings. I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure. Preston loved me. We were married. The certificate was in our safety deposit box next to Dad's envelope. But 3 months ago, I'd started noticing irregularities in the expense reports I filed. Payments to shell companies I couldn't trace. PR firms owned by Chloe's family billing hundreds of thousands of dollars monthly for services I couldn't verify. Marketing consultants charging obscene rates for campaigns that never seemed to materialize. I started keeping copies, creating my own files, using the master admin token Dad had left me, the one that gave me access to every system in the company, every email, every financial record. That's how I found the emails between Preston and Chloe. 2 years' worth. Planning, scheming, plotting the hostile takeover they'd launched the moment the Series E funding closed. They'd fabricated evidence that I was mentally unstable. They'd planted stories with board members about my erratic behavior, my obsession with Preston, my delusions about our relationship. They'd embezzled $47 million through those shell companies, and they were planning to blame it on me. The ring design I'd sketched, the one I'd shown Preston with such hope, he'd had it made. For Chloe. She'd worn it to the company holiday party last December while I'd served drinks to investors who didn't know my name. But I still didn't open Dad's envelope. I told myself I needed more proof, more time, more certainty. Then Chloe slapped that pregnancy test on the counter, and I realized I'd waited too long. I left work at 10:30 a.m., claiming a migraine. I drove to the bank where Dad's safety deposit box was waiting. My hands were steady this time. 3 years of watching, of waiting, of collecting evidence in silence. It had all led to this moment. The envelope was exactly where I'd left it. The red wax seal was still intact. I sat in the bank's private viewing room and broke it open. Inside was a letter in Dad's handwriting, a USB drive, and a business card for an attorney named Marcus Chen with an address on Montgomery Street. The letter was dated the day before Dad died. Dear Claire Bear, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and Preston Vance is already showing you who he really is. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this while I was alive. I'm sorry you're hurting, but I'm not sorry I prepared. I knew Preston would do this. I've seen men like him my whole life. Brilliant, charming, ruthless. They see opportunity, not people. They see a company worth billions, not a daughter worth protecting. I've been watching him since the day I hired him. I installed hidden cameras in the executive offices. I monitored the financial systems. I kept copies of every suspicious transaction, every deleted email, every accidental erasure of audit trails. The USB drive contains everything. Financial records showing Preston and Chloe Thorne embezzled $47.3 million through shell companies owned by her family between March 2022 and present. Bank wire records, shell company registry documents, forensic audit reports I commissioned secretly 6 months before I died. Video and audio evidence from hidden cameras showing Preston and Chloe planning the hostile takeover, discussing how to discredit you, coordinating the fabrication of evidence regarding your mental state. Email correspondence I retrieved from encrypted servers showing the full scope of their conspiracy, including plans to force a divorce after the Series E funding closes, seize control of the company using the mental incompetence claims, and split the proceeds. Testimony from 12 loyal employees and 5 board members who witnessed their behavior and are willing to testify when the time is right. The original master admin token I created for you, you already have it. The copy I gave Preston has limited access. He doesn't know. Your 51% majority shareholder status is ironclad. The trust documents are filed with the SEC, with Marcus Chen, and in 3 separate redundant systems Preston can't access or alter. Don't go to Preston. Don't confront them privately. Wait for the right moment. When they feel safest, when they've exposed themselves completely. That's when you show them what I left you. Marcus knows everything. He's been my attorney for 32 years. His office is at 555 Montgomery Street, Suite 2400. He's expecting you. He has copies of everything, plus legal documents you'll need. You are not weak. You are not paranoid. You are not whatever Preston told you you were. You are my daughter. You are a Sterling. You are the rightful CEO of this company, and you are going to take it back. Do you remember what I told you the night you graduated from MIT? You're smarter than every shark in that ocean, Claire Bear. You just have to decide when to show your teeth. It's time, sweetheart. All my love. Always, Dad. Your old man who knew you'd be reading this in a bank vault, probably crying, definitely angry, and absolutely ready to fight. I read it twice, then 3 times. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I examined the USB drive, plugged it into my laptop, opened the first file. Video footage dated 6 weeks ago. Preston's office. The camera was hidden somewhere high, bookshelf maybe, with a clear view of his desk. Preston and Chloe were reviewing documents. I turned up the volume. The board meeting is scheduled for April 15th, Preston was saying. Chen finalizes the Series E on the 12th. That gives us 3 days to execute. And Claire? Chloe's voice was sharp. We'll have her committed the morning of the 15th. Dr. Morrison has already prepared the psychiatric evaluation. 2 board members will testify to her increasingly erratic behavior. We'll have conservatorship by end of day. What if she fights? She won't. She doesn't even know she's the majority shareholder. Richard kept it quiet, and I made sure she never found out. As far as Claire knows, she's just my wife playing office worker. Chloe laughed. She really doesn't know? Not a clue. She thinks I love her. I closed the laptop, sat in that silence for 20 minutes. Then I called Marcus Chen. The attorney's office was everything Dad had described. 32nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. Marcus was 60-something, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. Ms. Sterling. He stood when I entered. Not Mrs. Vance, Ms. Sterling. Your father said you'd come. I wasn't sure when, but I knew you would. How long have you known? I asked. About Preston? Since the beginning. Your father had me running background checks from the day he submitted his resume. We found the pattern. 3 previous companies, 3 times he'd targeted majority shareholders' daughters, twice succeeding in marriage and asset transfer before the relationships collapsed under suspicious circumstances. Your father hired him anyway. Why? To keep him close, to control the variables, to give you time to see who he really was. Richard believed you were strong enough to handle this. He also believed you deserved the choice, to see the truth yourself, not just take his word for it. Marcus slid a folder across his desk. These are the documents you'll need. Proof of your majority shareholder status, filed with the SEC 3 months before your father died. Corporate bylaws giving you the right to call an emergency board meeting. Evidence documentation. Everything on that USB drive, plus hard copies authenticated by forensic accountants. Witness testimonies from employees your father cultivated. And this. He pulled out another envelope. Your father's contingency plan. He knew Preston would try for a hostile takeover after the Series E closed, so he made sure the funding agreement includes a clause. If any executive is found guilty of fraud or embezzlement, the funding deal voids automatically and all invested capital returns to the venture partners. Preston and Chloe embezzled $47.3 million. If you expose them, the Series E collapses, and Sterling Innovations stays private under your control. They'll lose everything, I said. Yes. And the employees? The company? Your father built contingencies for that too. Private investment from loyal partners who'll fund operations until you're ready to pursue another raise. They're waiting for your call. I looked at the documents, the evidence, the testimonies, the irrefutable documented proof of everything Preston and Chloe had done. When? Marcus asked. They're planning to move on April 15th. Board meeting. They'll try to have me committed, seize control, force the divorce. So we move first. No. I thought about Dad's letter. When they feel safest. When they've exposed themselves completely. We wait. Let them think they've won. Let them make their move. Then we show them what my father left behind. Marcus smiled. It was the same smile Dad used to have when I'd solve a complex problem. You really are Richard's daughter. I spent the next 3 weeks playing my role, filing expense reports, sorting mail, attending meetings, and taking notes nobody read. Preston was distant but polite. Chloe smirked every time we passed in the hallways. The pregnancy announcement came on March 28th. Preston sent a company-wide email introducing Chloe as his fiancée, announcing they were expecting, thanking everyone for their support during this exciting time. My phone buzzed with texts from coworkers, awkward messages. Did you see? Are you okay? I'm so sorry. I responded to each one the same way. I'm happy for them. Because I was. Happy they were exposing themselves. Happy they felt safe enough to stop hiding. On April 10th, 2 board members approached me in the parking garage. Claire, the first one said. His name was Robert Morrison. He'd been with the company for 15 years. We need to talk about some concerns we've been having. Concerns? About your behavior, your mental health. Several people have reported incidents. Emotional outbursts, paranoid accusations, erratic decision-making. I knew this was coming. I'd read the emails where Preston coached them on exactly what to say. I don't know what you're talking about, I said calmly. We've arranged for a psychiatric evaluation, the second board member said. Janet Torres. She'd joined the board 6 months ago, Preston's recommendation. Just as a precaution, for your own well-being, we all care about you, Claire. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Dr. Morrison's office downtown. I nodded, smiled. Of course. Thank you for looking out for me. They exchanged glances. This was too easy, their faces said, but they didn't question it. I called Marcus from my car. They moved the timeline, I said. Psychiatric evaluation tomorrow. Board meeting is probably the day after. Are you going? No, but I need you to file the emergency board meeting request, tonight. Schedule it for April 15th, 1 p.m. All board members required, no exceptions, cite Section 7. 3 of the corporate bylaws. Majority shareholders' right to call extraordinary sessions. Preston will know something's wrong. Good. Let him scramble. Let him wonder. Let him make mistakes. The email went out at 11:47 p.m. from Marcus's office to all board members. Emergency session called by majority shareholder pursuant to Section 7.3, attendance mandatory, penalties for absence include removal from board. My phone started ringing at 11:53 p.m. Preston. I didn't answer. He called 6 more times, then started texting. Claire, what's going on? Who called this meeting? answer your phone. This isn't funny. You're making a huge mistake. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The morning of April 15th was clear and cold. I dressed carefully. The black suit Dad had bought me for my first day at Main IT, the watch he'd given me for my 21st birthday. No jewelry, no makeup, just me. I drove to Sterling Innovations and parked in the visitor lot, not the employee garage where Preston might see my car. The board meeting was scheduled for 1 p.m. in the executive conference room. I wasn't going there yet. At 12:30 p.m., I walked into the company cafeteria. Lunch hour. The cafeteria was packed. At least 300 employees spread across dozens of tables, gathering food from the buffet lines, clustering in groups. The noise was overwhelming. Laughter, conversations, the clatter of trays and silverware. I got in line for coffee. Filled a mug. Preston's travel thermos was in my bag. I brought it from home again, like I had dozens of times before. I found a table in the center of the room, sat down, took out my laptop. At 12:43 p.m., Chloe Thorne walked in. She was with 3 other executives. They were laughing about something. She was wearing the ring. My ring. The design I'd sketched with such stupid, naive hope. She saw me. I watched her expression change. Confusion. Then recognition. Then something like predatory glee. She walked over. The 3 executives followed, sensing drama. "Claire!" Her voice was loud enough to carry. Conversations around us started dying. "What are you doing here?" "Having coffee." I took a sip from the thermos. "That's Preston's thermos." "Yes." Her eyes narrowed. "How dare you drink from my husband's thermos?" The cafeteria had gone almost completely silent now. 300 people watching, some with phones out. I set down the thermos, looked up at her. "Your husband?" "We're getting married next month. You know that. Everyone knows that." She put her hand on her stomach. "We're having a baby, Preston's baby. He told me about you, Claire. About your obsession with him, about the delusions." "Delusions," I repeated. "The board is taking action this afternoon. You're going to get the help you need." She turned to the watching crowd, performing. "I'm sorry you all have to see this. Claire is unwell. We've tried to be compassionate, but—" "Preston and I have been married for 3 years," I said quietly. Chloe laughed. "No, sweetie. You've been stalking Preston for 3 years. There's a difference." I opened my laptop, pulled up the file I'd prepared, turned the screen to face her. "This is our marriage certificate, filed with the county clerk on October 17th, 3 years ago. 2 witnesses, legal signatures. Preston Vance and Claire Sterling." She stared at the screen. The color started draining from her face. "This is impossible," she whispered. "This," I said, pulling up the next file, "is the documentation of $47.3 million in embezzled funds. Wire transfers from Sterling Innovations to shell companies owned by your family, PR firms that don't actually exist, marketing services never rendered, $47.3 million stolen over the past 2 years." The cafeteria was dead silent now. "This," I continued, "is video footage from hidden cameras in the executive offices. Would you like me to play the one where you and Preston discuss having me committed? Or the one where you plan the hostile takeover? Or the one where Preston says, and I quote, 'She thinks I love her'?" Chloe's hands were shaking. You can't." "This," I said, pulling up the final document, "is my legal documentation as majority shareholder of Sterling Innovations. 51% ownership, held in trust since birth, transferred completely to me upon my father's death 3 years ago. I am the primary owner of this company. Preston works for me. You work for me. Everyone in this room works for me." I stood up. "There's a board meeting in 17 minutes. I called it. Using my rights under Section 7.3 of the corporate bylaws, Preston should have read those more carefully before he started planning his takeover." Chloe was frozen, just staring, her mouth open, no sound coming out. "The pregnancy test you showed me," I said. "Is it real?" She nodded. "Barely." Then you should probably call your own lawyer. The embezzlement charges are going to federal court. The SEC has already been notified. The Series E funding agreement voids the moment fraud is confirmed, which means Sterling Innovation stays private under my control and you and Preston lose everything. I packed up my laptop, picked up the thermos. Oh, and Chloe? The ring you're wearing? I designed that for my 3rd anniversary with Preston. He stole the sketch from my desk and had it made for you. You might want to take it off before the FBI seizes it as evidence of asset theft. I walked toward the cafeteria exit. The crowd parted. Nobody spoke. Behind me, I heard Chloe make a sound, something between a sob and a scream. Then I heard running footsteps. Preston burst through the cafeteria doors. His face was flushed, his tie askew. He'd clearly been running through the building looking for me. Claire! He stopped when he saw the crowd, the phones. Chloe standing alone in the center of the room, crying. His eyes found mine. We need to talk, he said, privately. No. Claire, please. Whatever Chloe told you. I know everything, Preston. My father knew everything. He's known since the day he hired you. Preston's face changed. The charm dropped away. What was left was cold. You're bluffing. I pulled the USB drive from my pocket, held it up. Hidden cameras, financial records, email correspondence, witness testimonies, $47.3 million in embezzled funds, 2 years of planning a hostile takeover, evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, asset theft, and falsifying psychiatric evaluations. My father documented everything. If you expose this, the Series E collapses. The company loses $200 million in funding. Hundreds of jobs disappear. You'll destroy everything Richard built. No, you did that. My father built contingencies. Private investors ready to fund operations. Loyal partners who believe in this company's mission, not in lining their pockets with stolen money. Preston looked around the cafeteria. At the watching faces, the phones recording, the empire he'd thought he was building crumbling in real time. You won't do this, he said. You love me. I loved who I thought you were. That person never existed. Claire, I can explain. The board meeting starts in 12 minutes. You're required to attend. Section 7.3. If you're not there, you forfeit your position as CEO. If you are there, you get to watch me terminate you for cause in front of everyone you've manipulated for 3 years. I walked out. The board meeting started at exactly 1 p.m. All 11 board members were present. Preston sat at the far end of the table, his face gray. Chloe wasn't there. Someone said she'd been escorted out by security after trying to delete files from her computer. Marcus Chen stood beside me as I took my place at the head of the table, where Dad used to sit. This emergency session has been called by Claire Sterling, majority shareholder, pursuant to Section 7.3 of the corporate bylaws, Marcus began. Ms. Sterling, you have the floor. I didn't use notes. I didn't need to. 3 years ago, my father died. He left me this company, 51% ownership, held in trust and transferred to me completely upon his death. He also left me something else, evidence. He knew Preston Vance would betray this company. He knew there would be embezzlement, conspiracy, fraud. So he prepared. I plugged the USB drive into the conference room computer. The screen lit up with the first financial document. Over the past 2 years, Preston Vance and Chloe Thorne have embezzled $47.3 million from Sterling Innovations through shell companies owned by Ms. Thorne's family. The money was funneled through fake PR and marketing contracts. Every transaction is documented here. I pulled up the next file. These are emails between Preston and Chloe planning a hostile takeover scheduled for today. They intended to have me declared mentally incompetent, seize control of the company, force a divorce, and split the proceeds. I played a video clip. Preston's voice filled the conference room. She thinks I love her. Several board members looked away. These are the witness testimonies from 12 employees and 5 board members who observed this behavior and are willing to testify in federal court. These are the forensic audit reports commissioned by my father before his death. These are the hidden camera recordings from executive offices. These are the bank wire records, shell company registries, IP valuation documents proving theft of proprietary designs, Board meeting minutes showing evidence tampering. I let it sit. Let them absorb it. The Series E funding agreement includes a fraud clause. If any executive is found guilty of embezzlement, the deal voids and all invested capital returns to the venture partners. Preston and Chloe's actions mean Sterling Innovations will not be going public next quarter. Robert Morrison, the board member who tried to have me evaluated, leaned forward. Claire, if this is true, it's true. Every document is authenticated. The SEC has copies. Federal investigators are already reviewing the evidence. Preston finally spoke. His voice was hoarse. You're destroying everything. No, I'm protecting it. My father built this company on integrity. You tried to turn it into your personal bank account. I looked around the table, at the people who'd watched Preston charm them for 3 years, who'd believed his lies about me. Effective immediately, Preston Vance is terminated for cause, all stock options voided, all severance forfeited. Chloe Thorne is terminated for cause. Criminal charges are pending against both. I pulled out another document. These are the private investors my father cultivated. They're prepared to inject $150 million in operational capital while we restructure. We'll pursue Series E funding again in 18 months, after we've cleaned house and rebuilt trust. I looked at Preston. He was staring at the table. You underestimated 2 things, I said. My father's ability to see through people like you, and my patience. I spent 3 years watching you, learning, collecting evidence, waiting for you to expose yourself completely. You thought I was weak, you thought I was stupid, you thought I'd never fight back. I stood up. This company is mine. It's always been mine. You were just keeping the seat warm. Security escorted Preston and Chloe from the building at 2:17 p.m. I watched from my father's office, my office now, as they were walked through the lobby in front of 300 employees. Chloe was crying. Preston's face was blank. The FBI arrived at 4:30 p.m. to collect evidence. Marcus had everything organized, documented, authenticated. They'd be building their case for months, but the outcome wasn't in question. That night, I drove to the cemetery where Dad was buried. I sat on the grass next to his headstone. The sun was setting, turning everything orange and gold. You were right, I said. About Preston, about waiting, about me being strong enough. The wind rustled through the oak trees Dad had loved. I wish you were here to see this, to see me take back what you built, to see me be the CEO you always knew I could be. I pulled out the letter he'd left in the envelope, read it again in the fading light. I showed my teeth, Dad, just like you taught me. 6 months later, Sterling Innovations had stabilized. We'd implemented new financial oversight systems, restructured the board, hired a CFO with forensic accounting experience. The private investors had come through. We were profitable again. Preston and Chloe were awaiting trial on 14 federal charges including wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and falsifying corporate documents. The baby was real. Chloe had given birth to a daughter in July. Preston was petitioning for visitation from jail. I'd filed for divorce the day after the board meeting. It was finalized in August. Our Atherton estate, the one Dad had left me, the one Preston had claimed as his own, was mine again. I'd turned his home office into a library, filled it with Dad's favorite books. I kept the photograph of him on my desk. Next to it, I put the red wax envelope, empty now, but still meaningful. The company was thriving. We'd launched 2 new products, hired 147 new employees, started the Richard Sterling Innovation Fellowship for first-generation college students studying technology. I'd learned something my father tried to teach me, but I had to discover myself. Silence isn't peace. Silence is the price you pay for someone else's comfort, and I was done paying. I was done. If you're watching this and you've ever stayed quiet when you should have spoken up, if you've ever let someone diminish you because confrontation felt too hard, if you've ever thought you had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity, I need you to know something. Peace built on lies isn't peace. It's a countdown timer. And when it goes off, You want to be the one holding the evidence, not the one scrambling for excuses. If you've ever had someone steal from you, your money, your credit, your ideas, your confidence, and you stayed silent because you didn't think anyone would believe you, type, "I stayed silent" in the comments. Or if you fought back, even when it cost you everything to do it, type, "I fought back." Both are valid, both take courage, but only one lets you sleep at night. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm standing in my father's office on a cold December morning. Snow is falling outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. I'm drinking coffee from the thermos Preston used to carry. I kept it, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder. A reminder that I spent 3 years being underestimated, 3 years being dismissed, 3 years playing a role while building a case, and when the moment came, I had everything I needed. The company is mine, the truth is out. My father's legacy is protected, and I'm finally completely free.